I never thought much about my relationship with my father until the day of my college graduation. That was the day everything changed, not with a dramatic confrontation or tearful argument, but with an empty chair and a text message that finally made me see what I'd been trying to ignore for years. Looking back, the signs were always there. The missed baseball games where I'd scan the bleachers during my home runs looking for his face among the cheering parents. The elementary school plays where I'd peer past the blinding spotlight, searching for him in the audience only to find my mother sitting alone. The constant phone calls during my birthday dinners. His attention always divided between me and whatever client or colleague apparently couldn't wait. But somehow I'd convinced myself that college graduation would be different. This was the culmination of 4 years of hard work, sleepless nights, and student loans that would follow me for years. I'd maintained a 3.8 GPA while working part-time to cover expenses my scholarship didn't. I'd pushed through anxiety attacks before finals and survived on ramen when money got tight. Surely this moment was important enough to warrant his full attention. I was wrong. The morning of my graduation, I woke up early, excitement buzzing through me despite my lack of sleep. I checked my phone, expecting a message from my dad confirming what time he'd arrive. There was indeed a text from him sent at 5:47 a.m., but as I read it, the excitement drained from my body, replaced by a cold, hollow feeling I'd become all too familiar with over the years. Can't make it today, last-minute golf invitation with the Hendersons, big potential client, you understand. It's not like college is a big deal these days anyway, everyone goes. Love you. I read those words over and over, each time feeling a different emotion cycle through me. Shock, hurt, anger, and finally a strange sense of calm acceptance. This was who he was. This was who he had always been. The father who considered his son's milestone achievements optional if something more appealing came along. My mom called me immediately when she found out. She was furious, threatening to call him to make him change his mind. I could hear the righteous anger in her voice, the mama bear ready to defend her cub even though I was 22 years old and technically an adult. Don't, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. It's fine. I don't need him there. But honey, it's your graduation. He can't just... He already has, Mom, and honestly, I'm not even surprised. There was silence on the other end of the line, then a soft, sad sigh. I'm sorry, sweetheart. You deserve better. It's okay, I said, though we both knew it wasn't. I've got you there. That's what matters. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, still holding my phone, staring at that text message. It's not like college is a big deal these days anyway. Everyone goes. The casual dismissal stung worse than the absence itself. He wasn't even pretending this was a difficult choice for him. A golf game with potential clients was simply more important than watching his only son graduate college. I should have been hurt. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt something shifting inside me, a quiet revelation taking root. This wasn't about today. This was about a lifetime of disappointments, of showing up to empty chairs, of making excuses for the man who should have been my biggest supporter. And I was done. The ceremony itself was beautiful. The sun was shining, the campus was alive with excitement, and as I walked across that stage to receive my diploma, I heard my mother's voice rising above the crowd, cheering me on. My 2 best friends were there too, whistling and clapping. The only empty seat was his, but somehow it didn't feel empty. It felt like a statement. After the ceremony, we took photos, lots of them. Me in my cap and gown with my mom, with my friends, with my favorite professors. Professional photographers roamed the campus, capturing the day's memories for posterity. When one of them asked if we wanted to wait for the rest of our family to arrive, my mother just smiled tightly and said, "We're all here." Those 5 syllables contained an entire relationship's worth of disappointment and resignation. We're all here, the people who showed up, the people who cared enough to be present. That night, as I lay in bed scrolling through the day's photos, I made a decision. These photos weren't just memories, they were documentation, evidence of who showed up and who didn't. I wasn't going to pretend he was there. I wasn't going to Photoshop him in or make excuses. This was my reality, and for once, I wasn't going to paper over his absence. My father called the next day asking how it went, as if he were inquiring about a routine doctor's appointment or a trip to the grocery store. "It was fine," I said simply. "Great, great. Did you get some good pictures? Your mom should send them to me." I paused, feeling that calm determination settle over me again. "There wasn't anything to capture with you, Dad. You weren't there." There was silence on the other end of the line. A rare moment of speechlessness from a man who always had something to say. "Well," he finally managed, "I'm sure there will be plenty of other photo opportunities." He had no idea how wrong he was. Life moved forward, as it tends to do. I threw myself into building my career, starting at the bottom of a marketing firm and working my way up. I rarely spoke to my father except during obligatory holiday gatherings, and even then our conversations were surface level. Pleasant but hollow. He never apologized for missing my graduation, and I never brought it up again. It hung between us, unacknowledged but ever present. 3 years later, I received an unexpected promotion. Not just any promotion. I was being made the youngest department head in the company's history. The industry newsletter wanted to do a profile on me, complete with photos and a personal story about my journey. During the interview, the journalist asked about my education and what drove me to succeed. "My college years taught me self-reliance," I said truthfully. "I learned that showing up matters, that your presence, or absence, speaks volumes about what you value." The journalist nodded thoughtfully. "Any particular moments that shaped that perspective?" I considered sharing the story of my father's absence at graduation, but decided against it. This wasn't about him. It was about me and what I'd accomplished despite him. "Let's just say I learned early on that you can't depend on everyone to be there when it counts, so you build your life around the people who show up consistently. When it came time for the photo shoot, they wanted personal touches. Photos of my achievements, my journey. I provided them with a selection, including one from my graduation day, just me and my mom beaming proudly at the camera." "Just you and your mom at graduation?" the photographer asked. "No other family?" "No," I said simply. "Just us." He didn't press further. The article came out a month later. It was featured prominently in the newsletter, which was distributed to everyone in our industry, including potential clients. The response was overwhelming. My inbox flooded with congratulatory messages, including one from the Hendersons, the very people my father had chosen over my graduation. "Saw your feature," Mr. Henderson wrote. "Impressive accomplishments. Your father never mentioned your graduation. Would have told him to reschedule our golf game if I'd known." I stared at that email for a long time, a bitter laugh escaping me. Of course my father hadn't mentioned it. To do so would mean acknowledging that he'd prioritized a golf game over a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, that he'd casually dismissed 4 years of my hard work with a text message. I didn't respond to Henderson, but I did forward the message to my mother, who found it grimly satisfying. "Always thought Richard Henderson was smarter than your father," was all she said. That weekend my father called. His voice was tight, controlled. "Saw your article," he said. "Congratulations." "Thank you," I replied, waiting for what I knew was coming. "I noticed the graduation photo. Don't you have one with me in it?" I let the question hang in the air for a moment before answering. "There wasn't anything to capture, Dad. You weren't there." Another silence. Then, "That was 3 years ago. I thought we'd moved past that." "I have moved past it," I said calmly. "I've accepted who you are and who you aren't in my life. The photo simply reflects reality." "Reality," he repeated, the word laced with frustration. "The reality is that I'm your father. I've supported you your entire life. One missed event doesn't erase that." I took a deep breath. "It wasn't just one event, Dad. It was a pattern. And the photo doesn't erase anything. It just doesn't pretend you were somewhere you chose not to be." He changed the subject after that, but I could tell the conversation wasn't over. Not for him. His pride was wounded, not because he regretted missing my graduation, but because the evidence of his absence was now public. People in his professional circle had seen it. They knew. The carefully constructed image he maintained of being a devoted family man was cracking. Months passed. I was promoted again, this time to regional director. My office was redesigned, and I was given a larger space, with a wall dedicated to personal photos and achievements. The graduation photo took center place, alongside newer images of professional milestones. My father never visited my office, but colleagues who knew him would occasionally mention the photos. "I didn't realize it was just you and your mom at your graduation," one client said during a meeting. "Your father talks about you all the time. I assumed he'd be in all the big moment photos." I just smiled. He has his priorities. The next milestone came when I bought my first home. It wasn't anything extravagant, but it was mine, purchased with my own money, a testament to my hard work. I hosted a small housewarming party, and yes, I invited my father. To my surprise, he showed up, bearing an expensive bottle of champagne and a framed photo of us from my high school graduation, one of the few events he'd actually attended. "Thought you might want this for your wall," he said, trying to sound casual. I thanked him and set it aside. Later that evening, as I was showing everyone around, he noticed the wall in my home office. I'd created a gallery of meaningful moments: my college graduation, the day I got promoted, the keys to my new home. There he was, conspicuously absent from the visual narrative of my life. He didn't say anything then, but I caught him staring at that wall more than once during the party. His expression was difficult to read, part confusion, part hurt, part anger. It was the face of a man who was slowly realizing that actions have consequences, even delayed ones. My mother pulled me aside at one point, her eyes concerned. "He's upset about the photos," she whispered. "I know," I replied. "Do you care?" I thought about it for a moment. "Not enough to change anything." She nodded, squeezing my arm gently. "Good." Months turned into years. I dated, fell in love, got engaged. Wedding planning brought its own complications, especially when it came to father-daughter traditions. My fiancé, who knew the full story, supported whatever decisions I made. My mother worried that I might regret excluding my father from certain roles, but I was resolute. "He can attend as a guest," I told her, "but he doesn't get to suddenly play the doting father when it's convenient or visible." The tension came to a head during a pre-wedding dinner. My father pulled me aside, his expression unusually vulnerable. "I know I haven't always been there," he said, his voice low. "But it's your wedding. Let me walk you down the aisle. Let me have that moment with you." I looked at him, really looked at him, searching for genuine remorse, for understanding. What I saw was a man who was afraid of how it would look if he, the father of the bride, was relegated to sitting in the audience while his ex-wife took on the traditional paternal role. "That moment isn't just something you get to claim because it's traditional," I told him. "It's earned through all the other moments you chose to be present for. Mom's walking me down the aisle because she's been there consistently. She's earned it." His face hardened. "This is ridiculous. I'm your father. Biology isn't enough, Dad. It never was." The wedding was beautiful. My mother walked me down the aisle, a decision that raised some eyebrows but felt right to me. My father sat in the front row, his expression unreadable. At the reception, during the slideshow of photos chronicling our lives, there were pictures of me growing up in college, building my career. The graduation photo appeared, me and my mom smiling proudly. I felt my father shift uncomfortably beside his current wife. Later, as we danced, not the traditional father-daughter dance, but just a casual dance among many, he finally addressed the elephant in the room. "You've really never forgiven me, have you?" he asked quietly. I looked him straight in the eyes. "It's not about forgiveness, Dad. It's about consequences. You chose not to be present for important moments in my life. I'm simply honoring that choice by not pretending otherwise." He frowned. "It was one day, one ceremony." "It was a pattern," I corrected him. "The graduation was just the day I finally stopped making excuses for you." We swayed in silence for a few beats before he spoke again. "I want to do better." "That's up to you," I replied. "But you should know that better means showing up consistently, not just when there's a photographer around or an audience to impress." The song ended, and so did our conversation. As I walked away, I felt lighter somehow, as if speaking that truth had released something I'd been carrying for too long. In the years that followed, our relationship remained complicated. There were attempts on his part to be more present, some sincere, others performative. I appreciated the effort but maintained my boundaries. The photos on my wall remained unchanged, authentic representations of who was there when it mattered. When my first child was born, my father arrived at the hospital with an expensive camera in hand, eager to be included in the first family photos. As he fussed with settings and arranged us in what he deemed the perfect composition, I noticed my mother watching with a knowing expression. "You know," I told him gently as he prepared to take yet another picture, "photographs aren't what make a relationship real. Being present, consistently present, is what matters." He lowered the camera slowly, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. Perhaps for the first time, he truly heard me. "I'm here now," he said, his voice unusually vulnerable. "I want to be in these photos, but more importantly, I want to be in your lives." "Then be here tomorrow too," I replied, "and the day after that, and all the ordinary days that aren't worth photographing." He nodded solemnly, and as he handed the camera to a nurse to take a full family photo, him included, I felt something shift between us. Not forgiveness exactly, but an acknowledgement of truth and a tentative step toward something new. 2 weeks later, he showed up at our house unannounced. No camera, no gifts, just himself. He asked if he could hold his grandson for a while. No photos, no performance, just a quiet afternoon of being present. It was a small thing, but it mattered. The next month, he did it again, and again the month after that. Small, consistent moments that weren't Instagram-worthy, but were real. On my son's first birthday, we held a small party. My father arrived early to help set up. When the professional photographer I'd hired started taking family photos, my father stepped back. "You probably want some without me in them," he said, a hint of resignation in his voice. I looked at him for a long moment, considering. "No," I said finally. "I want the photos to reflect reality, and the reality is that you've been here for him since day one. You've earned your place in these photos." His eyes widened slightly, a mixture of surprise and gratitude crossing his face. He didn't say anything, but the way he straightened his tie before stepping into the frame spoke volumes. The graduation photos still hang on my wall. They still don't include him. Some truths don't change, and I've learned that's okay. What matters isn't erasing the past, but building a future where everyone understands that showing up isn't optional. It's the foundation of any relationship worth having. 5 years after my son was born, my career took another turn. A national business magazine wanted to feature me in their 40 Under 40 issue. The photo shoot was extensive, including both professional and personal elements. When the interviewer asked about my journey and the people who influenced me, I spoke honestly. My mother taught me resilience, my wife taught me balance, my son taught me joy, and my father, I paused, choosing my words carefully, my father taught me that presence is a choice we make every day, and that it's never too late to start making better choices. When the magazine came out, there was a 2-page spread featuring my story. The main photo showed me in my office, the wall of photos visible behind me. There was the graduation picture with just my mom and me, and right next to it, a newer edition, my father holding my son on his first day of preschool, both of them beaming at the camera. My father called the day the magazine hit newsstands. "I saw the article," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "What did you think?" I asked. "I think," he cleared his throat, "I think you told the truth, and I'm grateful for the chance to be part of the story now, even if I missed some important chapters." "You're writing new chapters," I told him. "That matters too." The conversation shifted to other topics, but before we hung up, he said something that stayed with me. You know, I used to think you kept those old photos up to punish me, to remind me of where I failed, but I understand now, they're not about punishment. They're about honesty, and without honesty, we can't build anything real. Exactly, I said quietly. The graduation photos remain on my wall to this day, not as a grudge or a punishment, but as a reminder that our stories include absences as well as presences, disappointments as well as triumphs. They're a testament to the fact that while we can't change the past, we can acknowledge it honestly and still move forward. My father and I will never have the relationship we might have had if he'd made different choices earlier. There will always be gaps in our shared history, moments that can't be recaptured. But we've found a way forward based on truth rather than pretense, and in its own way, that's a victory more meaningful than any perfectly composed family photo could ever be. Because in the end, life isn't captured in posed moments of ceremonial significance. It's built in the quiet, consistent choice to be present, again and again, especially when there's no camera around to document it.